Well, happy Friday. It is the Speaking for Him podcast, and it's not just any ordinary Friday. It's a very bittersweet kickoff to this weekend. I'm Adam McNutt, alongside the host of the program, Mr. Andrew Gomison.
Hey, Adam, it's good to be with you. And folks, if you don't realize why Adam said that, I can just lay it out for you right here. For those of you who follow me on social media, I revealed about a month ago that Adam was stepping down from his regular role as a co-host and executive producer of the Speaking for Him podcast. It has nothing to do with our relationship. It's as strong as ever, and it will continue to be strong.
Yes.
We'll continue to hang out outside of the studio. Adam is and will remain one of my best friends, and I'm so thankful that God brought him into my life for this season in which I have needed him in more ways than one. But today is about saying goodbye, at least as a regular contributor, to someone who I really credit with a lot of the longevity of the podcast. Because I told Adam early on in the podcast that I wanted him to not only be the producer, but to be a co-host. Because I didn't really want to sit in a booth and try to convey things and just do a show by myself. And things like the Freeform Friday broadcast that you heard last week would not have occurred had I not had a co-host. You can't do things like an Oreo taste test when it's just you in a booth. Well, you could, but it just would not have the flair.
A little awkward.
And I couldn't have pulled off things like A Christmas Carol, the full dramatic reading, which is probably for both of us still one of the highlights of our whole working together. Just the way that came together. We went from having one person, I think, show up at the planning meeting to having a studio full of actors, none of whom basically, I think maybe one of them was a professional actor, but the rest of them were just amateurs who came and gave it their all. And I'm immensely proud of that project because it sounds professional. And, I love it. And I love the fact that we're getting ready to do another one. Hopefully, in the next few weeks, we'll be bringing you Pilgrim's Progress. I know I've talked a lot about that, but I'm putting together the shows and getting ready to cast it. So I'm excited about that. But today's show is about saying goodbye and thank you to Adam. But first, let's have Adam give us our quote of the day.
Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. And that's from Helen Keller.
I was just struck by that quote as I was trying to find a good quote to sum up the last 5 years of being able to work together. I think a good portion also, beyond just having someone to talk to every couple weeks, a good portion also of the role that you've had here is accountability. Because if it was just about me producing a podcast in my bedroom, nobody would care, in a sense, whether I produce one every week or not. But when you signed on to help me with the podcast, I had accountability because you agreed to come into the studio on your off time every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks in the winter, and produce this show. And even though we've never gotten a huge amount of listeners, the listeners that we have gotten have been really blessed by what we've had to offer. We've had so many guests in. We recently talked to a gentleman from Chick-fil-A, which was pretty big on both of our lists to be able to do that.
That was cool.
So we've done a lot of cool things, and it's going to be hard to go to the next chapter. And I was talking to Adam before we recorded. I think I've persuaded him to stay on as a consultant and a sometimes co-host. I still would like him to come in for our Freeform Friday broadcasts on those fifth Fridays because they're only about once every 3 months. So we're hoping that we can work that out. So Adam's not going far, but I just wanted to once again just say thank you, Adam. And now I just want to get your thoughts on what the last 5 years have been like for you.
It has been so much fun. I remember when you had asked me to do this. We had met in, I think it was January of 2012, which feels like yesterday. And then you asked me in the summer of 2012, hey, I'm thinking of doing this podcast. And I asked the general manager, Brad Lancer, at JQ, where we record these and have for the past 5 years, hey, are you interested in being a producer in this and maybe even a co-host? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like fun. Little did you know, I was so socially awkward back then. I was just the night guy, and I could barely hold a conversation. So I'm like, I don't know what he's getting into. But I figured, all right, this would be something fun to try, and we'd become good friends by then. It's something interesting about that time, though, in my life. I don't think I ever shared this with you, but it was literally the week before we started officially that I actually got hired in with more hours at JQ. So I remember thinking, I'll have every other, I think it was Monday night at the time we started recording, I'll have every Monday night free. Well, then the week after I said yes, all of a sudden the radio station where I still work came to me and said, hey, we're thinking of bumping you up. We need help with you for more hours. We're losing somebody. And I was like, whoa. And in that week, I was nervous because it got so busy so quickly. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to balance that and now this podcast I just said yes to. And by God's grace and how things clicked and worked out, it was able to continue. But I remember that week before, I was nervous. I'm like, oh, great. Figures I'd say yes to something I've never had a chance to do like this before. And then all of a sudden, things started to take off. But luckily, things worked out. And it's been so cool through the past 5 years, Andrew, to hang out with you at least once every couple of weeks, but also to get to know the people we've talked to on the podcast, hear their stories, the laughs. I mean, just the experiences that not everybody at their jobs or projects get to experience, like when you get to do a podcast or radio. And I think that's been my favorite part, has been hearing the people's stories and getting to experience that together as friends has been absolutely awesome.
All right. Well, with a change comes a new person to join the staff of the Speaking for Him podcast, because Adam will be only here occasionally. I have another gentleman who has been gracious enough to agree to be my executive producer. I will say right before we introduce him that we are in the market for co-hosts. So I am looking for people who are willing to even just come in for one recording session and do a couple episodes with us. That would be awesome. And if along the way we find someone that wants to start doing it regularly, we'd be all for that as well. But without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Chad Cashman to the Speaking for Him podcast audience. So welcome, Chad, to the show. How are you doing tonight, Chad?
I'm just kidding. I'm here. I just wanted to see what you guys would do.
I was like,
I thought maybe we got disconnected.
Yeah, right. Have fun with your new producer and his tech support. Hope it works out.
I have a feeling it's going to be more than I bargained for.
You don't know what you got yourself into.
Well, I will find out. But Chad, can you give us a little bit of your background in radio?
Sure. I actually also work at JQ and for The Pledge, the sister station. I do mostly behind-the-scenes stuff. Every once in a while, Adam will let me talk on the air, and when he does, I'm very thankful for it. But he doesn't enough, so I'm very disappointed in him. Okay, just
well, you'll have plenty of times. You'll have plenty of chances to talk on my show if that's what you want.
There you go.
That's true. That's true. I also produce Ignite Radio. I'm sure your listeners remember J.R. Pittman because I believe he did do. He was a part of your show at one point. And as a guest?
Yes, he was a part of my show as a guest, and he also was instrumental in bringing Adam and I together.
That's how we met. It was on that show. Mm-hmm.
So therein is the history of the Speaking for Him podcast right here. Full circle from one Ignite Radio personality to another. So that's, I guess, a cool connection.
Well, it's all about you, and it's all about, bringing the gospel.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very excited to continue to do that on the Speaking for Him podcast. And as I said, we'll keep Adam around as much as we can because he's been...
Like an old couch.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's been
wow.
such a vital part of what we do here.
Yeah, see how much I let you talk on the radio now.
Maybe could you maybe share an interesting fun fact about yourself, Chad? That might be a dangerous question. So I will just caveat that by saying it's a family show.
Okay. So, have you ever heard of a Christmas Story? You know, the little boy with the glasses and
Ralphie and the Red Ryder BB gun. Yes.
That's right. That's right. I had something similar happen to me that happened to one of the characters on there, where that you remember the part where the boy got his tongue stuck on the telephone pole, or the flagpole it was. Okay, so I was on my way to school once and decided that me and my friends decided we were not going to be good, and we climbed the fence. Well, the bottom portion of my pants got caught in the fence, and when I jumped, it tore, and it left me hanging upside down.
Oh, man.
Now, that's not the worst part. The worst part is the bell went off, and all my friends left me dangling from the fence. And just like the movie, the teacher had to come with a pair of scissors and cut me down. And nobody would talk about it. Nobody would say whose idea it was or anything like that. I just was left dangling there by my friends because the bell rang. Not cool, friends.
Well, we could institute a new segment or a new feature on the show, Comedy Hour with Chad. So we're off to a good start.
Childhood edition. If I may, real quick too, the saddest part about that story is that's going to be your second producer to dangle from a fence from his pants.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's a trend. But I think we're running out of time. I don't think I can share that story right now. But
I think it's only fair to the audience who you've now left on the edge of their seat.
All right, Chad, I'm not trying.
You have to now.
Oh, boy.
I got to find out whether or not I was dumber than you or vice versa.
No. Well, it depends how old you were. This was about junior or senior year in high school for me.
Oh, no. This was
Darn it. All right. So what happened was I was trying to be a good neighbor, and I would mow lawns for people when they were out of town, or they'd hire me for yard work. And there was a house kitty corner from ours that had a big wooden fence to separate their back and front yard. So I went over one day, mowed the front, got that done. I couldn't get the latch at the top of that wooden fence, which is about 6.5 feet tall, I would say. And I couldn't reach it. But there was no places on the fence where you could climb real smoothly because it was, just flat wood on the front yard side where I was. So I quick jump up, put my hands on top of the peaks of the fence posts and run up real quick. And I started to put my leg over to climb over the fence, and my one foot slips on the front side. And my pant leg on my left leg catches one of the peaks. So all of a sudden, I'm dangling from the front of the fence with one leg over the peak and the other part of my body's hanging down, and I can't reach because I can't do any ab workouts at that point to get up to my foot. So I could only imagine people driving by and seeing this because I'm in the front yard. So I must look like this gigantic bird that's struggling or something. So I eventually had my pants rip all the way from my ankle up to my thigh on that leg.
Oh, boy.
And that's how I got down. Still haven't made it to the backyard at this point, by the way. And then I eventually had to walk a block home in shame with a half-ripped pant leg on one side and had to change. And
So if you've ever hung by your pants on a fence, talk to us about being on the show as a co-host.
Right.
As we
That's
move
a
in.
requirement.
it's like initiation, if you will.
That's right.
Well, thank
You should put
you.
that on an application.
Oh, rip dreams. Please,
Yes.
please apply.
And we don't do a whole lot in the area of financial compensation, but the fellowship compensation is high around here, and so we would really
Wait,
appreciate.
what, I'm not getting paid?
We'll figure it out, Chad. I'll look at your rider and we'll see what we can do.
I know, Chad. You can pay him a cake or something. If you're happy.
We never had a fully functioning green room when Adam was here, but maybe now.
Moving on up to the east side of the building.
But anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Chad. And Chad will be in the producer's chair for next week's podcast, and we're very excited to be welcoming him to the show. And as I said, Adam will be back from time to time, and he's definitely planning to come back for our 300th episode, which really isn't that far away because we've already we're pretty much about 30 to 35 episodes away at this point from 300. So we're talking, it's not going to be that long.
It's coming.
So we definitely appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, Chad. And
no problem. I'm looking forward to it.
Did you have any final thoughts, Adam, before we sign off?
Hey, I just want to say, make sure to tune in to Chad and Andrew next week. Chad, you're honestly one of the nicest guys I know. He's loyal, he's funny, he's just a great guy to be around. So you're going to have a lot of fun together, and happy you can be a part of this project. And Andrew, just thank you for the opportunities and for your friendship. We were just talking about stories earlier where when I went through hard times, like you were there, and just the things we got to experience together. From the bottom of my heart, truly, I'm very thankful. Thank you for the opportunity to even do this. Anyone could have been picked to do this, but I appreciate you came to me first, and I got to experience so many awesome things. And I continue to just pray God's blessing over this podcast for you, for Chad, for your guests. And I can't wait to come back and visit and be that awkward neighbor across the street.
or maybe the Wilson that's looking over the fence and just doesn't quite make it into the yard. But whatever the case may be, Adam, usually I lead us out, but you know the tagline, so I will let you finish the show today.
Well, thank you guys for listening. As always, we pray the best for you. Thank you for supporting this podcast. Continue to pray that you support this podcast. And you have a blessed weekend. Thank you for supporting this. And as always, keep serving the best of masters.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Your host has been Andrew Gomison, founder of Speaking for Him, alongside his co-host and executive producer, Adam McNutt. For more information on today's show and to leave us comments and voicemails, visit speakingforhim.blogspot.com. You can find Andrew's ministry at speakingforhim.com. That's speaking, the number 4, HIM. You can also interact with us at facebook.com/speakingforhim and on Twitter @SpeakingForHim. And when you look for us on iTunes and Stitcher, let us know what you think of the podcast by leaving a rating and review.